Good morning. Today in the Security Council session, we will be discussing Sudan. It is the greatest humanitarian crisis of the 21st century, and the world must not look away. 2 weeks ago, I visited Adre, the camp at the Sudan border with Chad. A huge camp of mainly women and children, and women who told me some of the horrors that they had seen. I spoke to nurses, teachers, small businesswomen, people who had lost their families, had everything ripped from them, and who told me too about the scale of sexual violence and rape being used as a weapon of war. I heard stories of children, teenage girls, enduring the most appalling and horrendous sexual violence. This is a war that is being waged on women's bodies. And we've seen too how too often the world has looked away from the atrocities in Sudan. That is why the UK led the process to commission the UN fact-finding mission into the RSF siege and capture of Fasher, the report is out today and whose findings I will be taking to the Security Council this morning. And the report's findings are chilling. Starvation used as a weapon of war, mass killings, civilians ambushed and slaughtered as they fled, and women raped by the bodies of their murdered children, ethnic targeting and perpetrators calling for extermination, and what the report describes as hallmarks of genocide. Today we will take this report to the Security Council so the world cannot look away, because we need action from across the international community. International criminal investigations and accountability for vile perpetrators and justice for victims. We need to extend sanctions. We need international pressure for a humanitarian truce and a ceasefire. And we need an end to the arms flows that are fueling this conflict. And we need the same international energy as we had rightly around securing a ceasefire in Gaza. We need now that to become the pressure for a ceasefire in Sudan. Because Fasher should have been a turning point, and it wasn't. Instead, the world has failed the people of Sudan, and it can fail them no more. I promised the women that I met when I visited Adre that I would ensure that the world would listen to the women of Sudan, not just the military men who have been perpetuating this conflict. And I promised that women's voices, Sudanese women's voices, would be heard in the Security Council. That is why Hala Alcarib is here today to brief the Security Council, and I will now hand over to Hala. It is vital that we have action for justice, for accountability, and for peace. Thank you, Hala.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Hala Alcarib, and I work as the Regional Director of Strategic Initiative for Women in the Horn of Africa, a grassroots feminist networks. I'm very grateful for the space by the UK. I will be briefing the Security Council on the situation in Sudan, with particular emphasis on the dire situations of women and girls. The UN fact-finding missions on Sudan today confirmed what we as civil society have known all along for a very long time. Sudanese women have been directly targeted due to their gender, ethnicity by the RSF as part of their genocide campaign in Fasher. Sexual and gender-based violence has been a central feature of this war from its inception. My organization has documented over 1,200 cases of conflict-related sexual violence since April 2023, including rape, sexual slavery, as well as other grave violations like abductions, detentions, and enforced disappearance. We know that this is just a tip of the iceberg. Comprehensive services for victims and survivors of conflict-related sexual violence are wholly inadequate. The healthcare system has collapsed. Humanitarian access remains constrained in many areas, and frontline workers themselves are frequently targeted for their work. As a result, many women and girls cannot access necessary sexual and reproductive health care, including post-rape care, emergency contraceptions, and safe abortion. Sexual violence doesn't affect women alone. Without immediate actions from the international community, this war will continue to tear apart our communities in Sudan. My hope today is that the Security Council will do everything in its power to protect civilians while developing a serious strategy to end hostilities. The Security Council must commit to deploying a mission with a clear mandate to protect civilians across Sudan, especially in Darfur, a region that has suffered war and genocide for quarter a century. Enable gender-sensitive humanitarian response and unfettered access throughout Sudan. Stop the external interference that fuel the conflicts in violations of the Council's own arms embargo on Darfur. Expand the arms embargo to the whole Sudan. Hold all parties accountable for violations of international law, including genocide and all forms of sexual and gender-based violence. It is critical at this dire moment for Sudan that the international community ensure that women, human rights defenders, frontline workers, and civil society have all the resources they need to continue their critical life-saving work. Most importantly, the Sudanese people must be at the center of any discussion to end the war and to forge the path for peace and stability. Thank you.
Thank you very much.